Good evening. Welcome to Larry Rinker Golf Live. I'm pleased to be joined this evening by my longtime friend, Mr. Brandel Chamblee. How you doing, Brandel?
Larry, I'm fine. Thank you very much. Nice to join you. I want to congratulate you on all your success in teaching, the radio, books, and you got a lot going on. But you are making an impact in the world of golf, and it's fun listening to you.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. You are as well with all you're doing with the Golf Channel, your analysis. I know you work very hard on your data and getting things organized. You know, it's kind of interesting. I was thinking about it with you coming on the show tonight. The hardest way to get on the PGA Tour is to win a tournament or win enough money to become exempt. And there's maybe been 20 guys that have done it in the last 40 years. Gary Hallberg did it, Lenny Clements, Ryan Moore, Tiger Woods, Justin Leonard. And the latest is someone from University of Texas, where you went to college and played golf, Will Zalatoris. And wow, what a week he had at the Masters. He finished 6th at the U.S. Open at Winged Foot in November. What do you think of this young man's game?
Well, I love his move. First of all, you know, it's an upright move. It's unique. It's his. It's idiosyncratic, and you know, I'm a big fan of. Well, actually, he's from Texas, but he ended up going to Wake Forest.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that's it's funny. He came out with a out of high school with a very impressive high school class. Bo Hostler was in that class. Scotty Scheffler was in that class. And, you know, UT, well, I mean, schools only have 4.5 scholarships. So, right. And Lanny Watkins had seen Will Zalatoris up close and personal because I think Will played at Bentry. I think Lanny would have seen him. Lanny, reached out to Jerry Haas, Jay Haas's brother, who's the coach at Wake Forest, who gave him the heads up. So Will went off there, but I think if anything, Will is, and I've talked a little bit about this as it relates to Colin Morikawa and some of the younger players who have over their entire college careers, they've studied the game, I think, in a more holistic way than tour players. You know, tour players go out and of course they have books, they have caddies, they have lots of data, but I don't think that they've been as thoroughly coached on the sort of sabermetrics that have been introduced to the college game. So college players are sort of able to come out, sort of skip that apprenticeship and hit the ground running and play the game like a veteran. Colin Morikawa certainly did that. You looked at Victor Hovland, he's done that. And Will Zalatoris is just another one who's come along and who's been able to sort of hit the ground running. He shows up at these golf courses, not with 20 years experience, but with online data that equates to far more than 20 years of experience. He knows how to play these golf courses, in many cases, better than the veterans who are playing the golf courses he's playing against. So that was one of the reasons why, early on, not like I'm any soothsayer here, a lot of people liked Will Zalatoris going to the Masters, but it was one of the reasons why I liked Will Zalatoris at the Masters and picked him early in the week to make a big name, a big statement that week, because he would have been able to sort of mitigate or minimize the inexperience that he had at that golf course. And I think that's going to be true of all the young players coming out from now till, you name it.
Well, it's really impressive to me. It's one thing to make it to the weekend and be in one of the final groups, but to play the weekend and still have a chance to win on Sunday coming down the stretch. And he finished 2nd at the Masters, 6th at the U.S. Open. So to finish, not to drop back and finish 25th or 30th, that just shows a lot of mental fortitude, other skill sets that we really don't talk enough about.
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing to be able to hit the golf ball. I mean, there's so much to playing highest level golf, as you well know, and it's poise, it's a calm in the storm. It's sort of keeping your wits about you.
Right.
I mean, if you look at Xander Schauffele at the 16th hole on Sunday. You know, there is hardly any player that's exempt from sort of cognitive chaos
Right.
late Sunday at major championships. There's very few players that haven't succumbed to, you know, Sunday nerves or getting lost in the moment. You know, and young players, yeah, I mean, certainly they have less experience, but they also have less scar tissue. You know, so that if you look, I mean, there is this sort of this odd trend with young players who come out, have a high degree of success given their inexperience, and many of them will, over the course of, you know, a year or two, that sophomore slump, be dealt some pretty big blows in the game. You know, they've never been beaten anywhere in their life. They've never had to deal with any sort of real adversity, and then all of a sudden they're playing against every great player in the world. So it does happen that players, you know, come out, hit the ground running, and then sort of lose that edge that the confidence gave them. Haven't seen it with Will Zalatoris. Obviously, it's very young in his career to see any sort of downturn in that, but it's not uncommon to see that. I'm not saying that happened to Xander Schauffele. I'm just saying that, you know, I mean, these situational things arise. You can go back and look 2019 and see Francisco Molinari, Tony Finau, Brooks Koepka, all of them succumb to the pressure on Sunday. It's just rare when you see somebody not give into it. So yeah, you're right. I mean, that's one of the things that was very impressive about Will Zalatoris.
Well, Brandel, you're an All-American at University of Texas. You're PGA Tour winner. What would you do differently if you knew then what you know now?
I would. It's hard to say, because if I could go back then and have YouTube, then I would not be near as susceptible to bad information from teachers. You know, it's very, and I'm not saying that they didn't have any malicious intent, but they were as ignorant as I was, actually more ignorant, because they had biases that were just not founded in fact.
Right.
And they were pushing those biases on unsuspecting students who were very, very good at implementing their ideas.
We were lab rats.
You know, we were great lab rats because we could do whatever it is that they were foisting upon us. And, you know, it was funny. My dad didn't know anything about golf, nothing. I'm about to go see my father right now, as a matter of fact, but because I'm flying through Dallas, but he knew nothing about golf. But he told me when I was going to college to never, ever listen to anybody about my golf swing, because he had many people tell him, you know, your son, I didn't play golf really till I was 13, but by the time I was 16, I was really good. And I did it all through toil and imitation and so forth. And he, you know, and so that, you know, my dad says, like, I don't know anything about anything except you're pretty good at figuring this stuff out on your own. Trust yourself. And it's ironic that I, you know, sort of went against that advice and started listening to teachers, mostly because I got really, really good. And I turned around, and a lot of teachers were standing behind me, watching me, and wanted to talk golf swing with me. And I love to talk about the golf swing. But I changed my golf swing, and I was never as long. It didn't hit the ball as high the entire 15 years I played the tour as I did when I was younger. And it's all because, I mean, I can almost take you to the moment that it began to happen. And it's, you know, it's the minute someone told me that I needed to, you know, keep the club head outside my hands, and swing flatter, and keep the flex in my right knee. And I can tell you almost exactly when that happened and who it was and where it was. And I never really heard anything to the contrary of that advice for the entire 20 years I was a professional golfer, because, you know, one teacher espoused it, and then another bit it, and another bit it. And the next thing you know, they all ate it. And it was on every magazine and on every cover. And that was basically the foundation of teaching. Keep the flex in your right knee, have a short arm path, keep the club out in front of your hands. And, you know, that's 20 years of, I would say, unfulfilled potential, not just for me, but for almost every touring pro that ever listened to that nonsense. And now, then, you know, in the last 10, 15 years, no, not that long, last 5 years, you've seen an unraveling of that. And it's all because of social media. and I mean, I wrote a book on the very subject saying that, the greats didn't do these things, and you're seeing tour players now not doing those things and fulfilling their power potential.
Well, it's funny you say that about keeping the club head outside your hands going back. I remember being on the range at the Phoenix Open, and the great Jim Flick was standing back there, who was partners with my mentor of now 45 years, Bob Toski. And I remember he wanted me to do that. And he made a comment like, it'll be worth it to you, Larry, to work on it. And it never felt right. And I realize now that that's not my backswing. That just isn't how I swing a club. But my instincts knew it wasn't right.
Right. I mean, these things are, and again, I mean, these teachers were well intentioned. They had no malicious intent, but it was an aesthetic preference.
Right.
It wasn't based in fact, because if you would think about teachers that would have been teaching this stuff in the 80s, if you go back and look at almost every single great player, they would have, I think, been influenced by, you would imagine being influenced by, most of them, the vast majority of them, the club head went way inside their hands going back.
Snead did it. Bobby Jones.
All of them did it, all of them did it. And, I mean, you could say Jack would have tied, he would have had it, depending upon when you see Jack.
Right.
What video, but Jack was standing the shaft up and flying the right arm. Again, that certainly wasn't taught. It's being taught now, but it wasn't being taught then. So, they were teaching to an aesthetic ideal and trying to get everybody to sort of adhere to. They're not fundamentals. They were just preferences, biased
Right.
preferences. And now then, because of better diagnostic equipment, because of social media, which acts like peer review, if you put out a bad idea, it gets peer reviewed. It gets peer review. Science, before, I mean, golf was pseudoscience. Now then we have more accurate measuring devices, and it actually is science.
Right.
Some of these guys, it's real science, and it gets peer reviewed.
Right.
And you get a better understanding of power principles, and you get a better understanding of accuracy principles. And to the degree that we've been able to measure more accurately, teaching has become better.
Well, it's interesting you say power, because it seems like right now everything is about speed. Everybody's talking speed. How do I get more speed? I mean, it's like nobody cares if you hit it straight. I just got to hit it far.
Yes, because it is linked. Power is linked to better scores at every level. The more powerful your golf swing, at every single level, the data shows that it improves your golf score. At the highest level, it's a misunderstanding of what they're doing to think that it's just about power, because they're keeping the ball in play. And I think the tour needs to come up with better metrics, even than stroke gain off of the tee, at least in terms of how you drive the ball. It should be a deviation off of, and again, it's difficult to know where players are lined up, but let's just say a deviation off the center line in terms of degrees. And then you get a more accurate measure of a player's ability to hit it straight, because if you hit it 250 and your miss is 4 degrees, and you hit it 350 and your miss is 4 degrees, who was in terms of accuracy the better driver?
Right.
Well, by far the guy who hit it 350 at 4 degrees was the better driver, because it's much harder to swing harder and maintain a level of accuracy. But the guy who hit it 250 at 4 degrees caught the right edge of the fairway, and the guy who hit it 350 at 4 degrees didn't. But that, I mean, again, that's where strokes gain off the tee takes that into account. But I think to some degree, to quell those who think that it's just about distance, if you showed how far, for instance, Bryson DeChambeau hit it at the U.S. Open at Winged Foot, and the guys at Decade did this, they went in and measured every single drive of every single player in the top 10 in driving distance, and then they plotted their deviation from a center line. And Bryson was by far the longest, by far, even though he finished 6th in driving distance that week. That's only 2 holes. They measured at every drive, and he was by far the longest, and he was the straightest. And, you know, strokes gain off of the tee didn't measure that accurately, and nor did fairways hit or driving distance. But, you know, the devil is in those details. And I, you know, I think people look at his score and they think, it's just because he was able to drive it in the rough with impunity. No, he was extraordinary. He drove it 9 miles and you know, colossally long and unbelievably straight.
Right.
That should win U.S. Opens.
No, it should. And if you can chip and putt, you're going to win U.S. Opens. But it's interesting to me, Brandel, watching players struggle with what you and I have struggled with when we were playing the tour, where we were getting information that maybe didn't fit us, you know, that was well-intentioned, as you say, but it didn't fit us. And you see someone like Jordan Spieth, no knocks against Cam McCormick, but there's something about him going to see Butch Harmon that I feel like he just said, Jordan, let's help you find Jordan Spieth again. And now we see another very popular player, Ricky Fowler, that we haven't seen on any leaderboard in a while. And, you know, how does the Ricky Fowler go about finding Ricky again?
Look, you know, Jordan talked about finding ownership. I mean, yes, he did go see Butch Harmon, but I don't know that turned things around. I think he was sort of clandestinely talking to Jason Duffner, and Jason Duffner, who sort of has a cult following on the PGA Tour, as a ball striker and a bit of a savant when it comes to the golf swing. And if you ever have stood behind Jason Duffner when he hits golf shots, he's not the most powerful, but it makes a great sound, and he's very impressive. And right. So I think he shared some knowledge with Jordan Spieth, and I think Jordan, you know, took some ownership of it and put 2 and 2 together and figured it out basically on his own. Ricky, I think similarly, look, he went to work with I've talked a lot about John Tattersall as being a very good teacher. Maybe I got that wrong. I don't think he works with John Tattersall. I'm thinking
John Tillery, I think.
Yeah, John Tillery. Yeah, that's exactly right. John Tillery, who works with Kevin Kisner. And Kevin Kisner's got a gorgeous golf swing, but it's not built for power. It's built for accuracy. You know, he keeps the flex in his right knee, and anytime you see someone keep the flex in the right knee, they're not going to maximize power. And if you look at Ricky Fowler, once he left Butch Harmon and went to John Tillery, you can go back and look. You go back and look at Ricky Fowler's 2019 driving distance. Then you go look at his 2020 driving distance. And he went from being around 30th or 28th in driving distance to around 130th or 120th. He lost a lot of distance. And, you know, it looked to me like, you know, he went away from the things in his golf swing that used to work. Keeping more flex in his right knee it's just not a good idea. No. You know, it just doesn't work. It's just not a good idea. It's taught by everybody. It doesn't work, especially in this power prejudiced era. You want to strip somebody of a couple of gears in their golf swing, tell them to keep the flex in their right knee. And as he lost distance and he became a worse driver of the golf ball, he lost his way. And trying to find your way back is a very difficult thing to do, because not only do you lose the feels that you once had, you lose the confidence. And it takes a little while to first get the feels and then get the confidence. And, you know, some don't ever find their way back. And it's possible he won't, but.
Well, we're also seeing players get hurt a lot more often than when we played the tour.
Yeah, I mean, I think guys are, you know, it's one of the reasons why I really was fascinated with Rory McIlroy and the whoop that he's wearing, and so many other players are wearing that, because it motivates the players to rest. And I think players were sort of overextending themselves. You heard Jason Day talk about the sacrifices he was making to stay number one, that he was doing great work in the gym and practicing basically until the sun went down, and more work in the gym. And it just didn't sound like there was any room for rest. And, mind you, Jason Day has a short, quick golf swing, which you're always going to be vulnerable to injury, especially in an era where they're swinging 120 plus miles an hour. But I think, working out smarter, because Tiger didn't exactly set the greatest precedent for gym work. He got guys to the gym, but he motivated them into this physical metamorphosis for, I don't know what reasons, intimidation, vanity, because besides Bryson DeChambeau, I can't think of anybody that got, Dustin Johnson didn't get more muscular and faster. He was faster when he was first on tour and sinewy, and Brooks Koepka didn't get faster when he got more muscular. He was faster when he first came on tour, and so was Tiger Woods when he was, what did Tiger weigh when he first came on tour? 150 pounds, 60 pounds?
He was a lot skinnier.
Yes, and they didn't have club head speed then, but if you'll consider what he did at the Masters in 1997, he averaged 323 yards off of the tee and was the longest by more than 20 yards. That driving distance at the Masters wasn't surpassed until 2020 when Bryson DeChambeau beat him by 1/10 of a yard at the Masters. So, the point is, Tiger motivating everybody to go to the gym wasn't necessarily the best, I think, scenario for tour players. Because you've only got so many, so many hours in a day to expend energy. And if you're on the range practicing and chipping and putting, and then you go spend a couple hours in the gym and you get back up and do it all over again, your body's not rested enough. So I think Rory, with Whoop and impressing upon people the importance of educating yourself for proper rest, I think sets a better precedent for tour players going forward.
So what are you looking forward to the rest of 2021?
We got a passel of major championships left. We got the Ryder Cup and the Olympics. And the Olympics is in Japan, and given the fact that Hideki Matsuyama won the Masters, and the fact that it's in Japan, it's going to be, it's going to be unlike any. I think it's going to be unlike any golf event that we've ever seen in terms of interest in eyes,
right,
and sort of tingly feelings. I love the fact that Justin Thomas has said that he's going to play. Because the best players from the United States didn't necessarily give it their best, their support in 2016. A lot of people skipped because of the Zika virus. I think you'll have better fields, or a better field representing the best players from on the men's side. The women's side was well represented in 2016, but I'm really looking forward to the Olympics, and of course, the PGA Championship returning to Kiowa, the U.S. Open returning to Torrey Pines, and the Royal St. George's gets, that's where the Open's going to be. It doesn't get the fanfare that it really deserves. I think if you spend some time reading about Royal St. George's, if you go in and you read, if you read, if you Google, I think Harry Barden and Royal St. George's, or James Braid and Royal St. George's, it'll take you to places of understanding about Royal St. George's you wouldn't otherwise have. I think most people just look at it as a quirky golf course because some players call it that, but it's an extraordinary golf course that I'm looking forward to going to and seeing.
It's an interesting course. I played the 93 Open.
Oh, did you?
There, yeah.
Any good?
No, I missed the cut. But one thing I noticed there is there's not a lot of run up. There's a lot of greens that have trouble in front, bunkers in front. So it's not your true Scottish where you got all this open area in front of the greens. And then it has Hell's Bunker. I think it's the fourth hole down the right side. Definitely don't want to go in there. But it's an interesting golf course. Greg Norman won it there in 1993. And, obviously wind always is going to play a factor in an Open championship. But I agree. It's another great course. And really what we want to see in major championships is the best players identified, don't we?
Yeah. I like the variety of Open Championship golf course. I'm often asked what's my favorite tournament to cover. And it boils down between the Masters and the Open Championship. No disrespect to any other tournament. It's just that, they hold I think, unique places in the world of golf. I think Augusta National, from an aesthetic standpoint, approaches perfection, from an enticement, strategic, and I think the time of year that it falls, it just hits a sweet spot on a lot of different avenues for people. And then there's the Open Championship, because it goes back to 1860 and because it is so vastly different from any golf that we play or really see here in the United States. So for those two reasons, those events hold a special appeal to me. So I always look forward, and I was going to play in the Senior Open this year, which is at Sunningdale, the week after the Open Championship. But this is an Olympic year, and I got to get home as soon as I got to get back to the United States as soon as the Open's over to cover the Olympics.
Wow. Larry Rinker Golf Live is on Thursday evening, 7:30 to 8 p.m. My new book is out, The Journeyman. Brandel, thank you so much for writing a great testimonial.
Yes, yes.
That screen share is saved. I'll try that again. Let's try this again. There we go. You can see it now. There is my new book, The Journeyman, and there is Brandel Chamblee. We were there at book signing for Payne Stewart's book, and that was fun. Your favorite bookstore in Winter Park?
Yeah, I love that place. We've just moved from Orlando back to Scottsdale, but I love that bookshop. It had when you stumble across sort of a boutique bookshop, it doesn't have the huge commercial appeal or the commercial books. You can find some books that are out of print, but you find just some books that you wouldn't otherwise see. So I used to grab a coffee, my wife and I, and tool around in there. We loved it. I miss Orlando. I miss that part of Orlando a lot. I miss going out to the Ritz and hitting golf balls. I'd always run into you. You'd be back there teaching or coaching on the front end, putting. But I miss seeing you. I miss being out there. And congratulations though on the book. I love the title. I've always thought that journeyman has always had a negative connotation to it, and unrightfully so, because as I've said many times, it's as hard to be unspoiled by failure as it is to be unspoiled by fame. And journeymen who put in the miles just as many as the superstars do, and who have not lost their passion and their love for the game and haven't become bitter along the way, are they're extraordinarily resilient people, and I think that pretty much sums you up and a lot of the people you ran around with.
Well, I appreciate that, Brandel. I wish you all the best here in 2021. Until next Thursday, keep swinging.
Thank you.